Ballerina is directed by Lynn Wiseman and stars Anna de Armas, Norman Reedus, Keanu Reeves, and among others. And this is the spin-off to the John Wick franchise, involving where you have this assassin named Eve who grows up in the Ballerina orphanage that was featured in the John Wick Chapter 3, where she ends up having to go on a vendetta of her own after some personal things happen. And if you've seen from the trailer, it essentially gets her to pretty much going after those that wronged her, and along the way she has to also uncover some stuff that's involving with Norman Reedus' character that involves with his daughter. And well, not a spoiler or anything, but if you've seen in the trailers, there's also something that also involves where the John Wick has to come in as a resort. Now, here's a little backstory. Now, this movie was actually directed by Lynn Wiseman, who I've actually enjoyed some of the movies that he's directed in the past, especially the first two Underworld films and Live Free or Die Hard. And with this being now the spin-off to the John Wick franchise, I was really interested to see where it went, especially since we've gotten the other four movies that came out that, to this day, I feel like have changed the way we've seen of action movies and how they went back to giving those old school type of vibes of giving everything that you want to see as far as like badassery done, with also putting Keanu Reeves back on the map as an action star. And the way that they were able to build this whole world up about how the things that the crime life that John Wick is in, it really opened a lot of great ideas to what you could do with the franchise. And I've enjoyed every one of these movies. I can't get enough of them. And I've also been open to see what they would do as far as like other spin-offs, because I also did watch the Continental show. And while there's aspects of that show I feel like that could have been a lot better in certain regards, I still thought it was decent. I just think that they kind of really could have spent some time on some other things compared to some and done some of the action scenes a little bit better in certain regards. But I still had some enjoyment out of it. And then with Chapter 4 pretty much being like the biggest one we've seen so far, they've talked about other things that they could really do with the franchise in the future, whether we get a Kane spinoff. There's also some rumors that we may get a Chapter 5, so it's all on the table. But with this being pretty much the second spin-off of sorts that we've got after the TV show, I went into the trailer just knowing what I was getting into, because not everything has to really, because I knew that the movie wasn't going to just be about John Wick himself. It was just mainly going to be about a different viewpoint of different viewpoints, and I think that was definitely the right choice. And seeing Anna de Armas come a long way with these type of action roles she's been doing, especially from No Time to Die, it showed. I really just wanted to see her in more action roles, because I think that she really has the potential for it and everything. And from the trailers, I was really excited to see what she would do with it. And after upon seeing the film, this was everything I really wanted it. I knew I was going to like it, but I thought that it was also even more that caught me off, because there were some things they really added into this that I found myself very engaged with on a good, not only storytelling level, but also everything that I loved from the action is all here from the John Wick series. So to get my pros out of the way, I thought Anna did a fantastic job. She really not only knocks it out in the the physical department, especially where she's having to take to kick ass and everything, but the vulnerable side to her I really enjoyed as well, because the backstory they give her and the way that she gets into this lifestyle, I thought it was not only very engaging, but the ways that she has to make all the different choices throughout the film, I thought was really interesting how it went along, because there's some twists and turns that happen with her character that I found myself really caught me off guard with. And I'll get into just a couple of minor cons that I will get into more with that I feel like they could have added some things better with. But I still like how it gives a lot of good layers to her character. And I appreciate that the movie doesn't hold back with actually showing that she gets her ass kicked throughout the movie too, much like how John does. And the movie also really points that she's not as strong as John is, but she's able to hold her own in that regard. And the action scenes, what can I say? They're all really top notch. They were able to really showcase a lot of what we see with gunshots and like you see in the other films. But also this one takes a very special case where you're seeing a lot of different weapons come involved, whether it's grenades, especially in a lot of parts where you're seeing people get blown up and everything, and then on top of seeing flamethrowers and also stuff that involves with C4 and stuff like, and a lot of other things. And so it really gets creative how this series has went so far to really than doing your typical point shoot type of vibe. Because as the series has gone along, it's good to see that they do a good change up with giving you different types of ways how you can do action scenes. And the rest of the cast I thought was really great too, especially seeing Gabriel Byrne as the villain. I thought he was not only intimidating, but I also appreciate there's also a twist that involves this character later on in the film that I did really get into. And then I also like how the movie goes into some stuff that involves with the Russian or the ballerina place that we saw in the third film. We see a lot of the stuff that goes on there because we get to see her pretty much training and everything at the beginning and all that. And so it was kind of like watching like a female version of Agent 47, if that makes sense, from like the Hitman series, but in a good way. So I thought that was really nice how they explored that. And one of the other things I got to appreciate too is how the movie is keeping the very familiar, score from the other films, and seeing familiars that come back, especially Lance Reddick. Seeing him one last time as Sharon, I thought was great. May he rest in peace. And Ian McShane coming back, of course, as Winston. He did fantastic as usual. And then, of course, what can I say about Keanu Reeves? Him coming back as the Baba Yaga was not only fun to see, but he's really fun to see, especially when we get to the climax and everything. But I do have a kind of just a small kind of either more questionable thing with his presence in the film, and that mainly has to do with the continuity with the actual series. But I'll get into that later. But this is pretty much everything that I really like to see how the movie progressed, because for about the first 2/3 of it, with it being pretty much its own story and trying to go into with her going on a vendetta against Gabriel Byrne, I thought it was very, it kept me on the edge. And then when we get to our final climax, it is very cool the way they set out all the sequence, the final gun shootouts that take place and everything, and then we get some revelations that come across with her character. But this is now where I kind of fall into a little bit of my cons, and we'll have to say that the movie does have some questionable continuity when it comes to with this being taking place between 3 and 4, because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not going to go into much like details, but the point of how we get, John coming into the story, I did kind of wonder if that was meant to be part of reshoots that were done, because from what I also heard was that Chad, who directed the other films, he came in to pretty much like do some touch up on some action scenes and stuff. And I do kind of wonder if there was a rewrite for them to kind of add John into this thing going on the climax. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy the way it plays out, but I did also kind of have to wonder where it fits in the continuity of it, because looking on the details throughout the film, I'm kind of wondering like, okay, certain characters, the way they look, in certain ways that you're trying to like piece together, like, okay, where would John pretty much have the time to do all this? Now, there was a point in Part 3 that happens when he has to go and do a certain journey at one point, but I did also really wonder, like, okay, did he have time to do all that? You know what I mean? That's why I kind of wonder if that was just one of the reshoots they kind of done, because it does feel like it was kind of stitched together on a filmmaking level. That, and I also did kind of feel like there's a really big twist they reveal that involves with Anna's character later on in the film. When we get to near the end, that I felt myself, it caught me off guard. But unfortunately, the way they do with it doesn't really feel like it went anywhere. You know what I mean? And you'll see it when I'm talking about later on in the film, because it's supposed to add an emotional point to it. But I felt like there's more they could have really spent more time with, or actually really done a lot better on the writing with that regard. But other than that, though, those are like really my only two kind of really things that I did kind of feel that it did have the movie cut back just a little bit, that held it back from being great. And so with that, I still had a really good time with this one, and while it may not be as great as some of the other entries, it's still a very rather solid spin-off, and I can't wait to see what they do with this franchise next. And so with that, I'm going to give it a very high compelling grade on the Film Freaks meter. And so for those of you who've also seen Ballerina and also the other films in the John Wick franchise, let me know in the comments what you thought about it, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.